Here in this video, I'm going to show some of the tools that I use to develop radiuses and curves for my layouts. One of the difficult things, I think, in making your railroad run really smooth is making sure radiuses are correct. So kind of look at your locomotives and decide what is the maximum radius that you're going to need. Now, most of them are I have a 12-inch radius arc here. So what I did was I made sure that I've got a nice square corner in here, and most locomotives will run easily on a 12-inch radius. So this is a one piece that's a 12-inch radius, and I can set this down onto my layout and then draw that arc. So what I'll do is I'll take either one of two types of squares. I'll either use my framing square to hold tight against the edge of my table, or I have a big sheetrock square that I have used. Okay, the sheetrock square seems to be one of the most versatile tools I've ever owned, so I'm kind of glad I have one of those. But I'll hold this in place here tight, so I'm square here, and by doing that I can get good points of tangency. So what do I mean by that is that as this arc comes into this corner, so I can kind of show a little bit on this design that I have here. When I get to this arc and this transitions to this arc, this point where the arcs kind of meet need to be a pretty decent point of tangency. So if I have a square coming across here, holding my arcs in place, I can get that point where there's going to be a nice smooth transition from one piece of track to the next. So this is basically in using FlexTrack. Obviously, if you use SnapTracks of all sorts and types, you probably don't need to worry about that as much. But another thing that I like about this is that I can take, and you'll notice I've got one that's just an 18-inch radius, okay, and I can use that to start my curve, so that as I come out of a straightaway, okay, as I come off of a straightaway, move a couple of these things out of the way. As I come out of a straightaway, I usually use this 18-inch radius to help me pull a nice little arc in before I actually take in the other 12-inch radius that's going to be would be working around here. So the reason I have 12-inch radius is this is I'm designing a mountain reversing loop for N-Track. And the minimum radius you can use for a mountain line is a radius of 12. So in order to get the train to actually reverse all the way around, I'm going to need a 12-inch radius. If I go anything bigger than that, a 12-inch radius is a 24-inch diameter, and our modules are only 24 inches apart. So I've got, how do I get to that tight curve? So I've got to try to make a small 18-inch radius curve coming in here before I hit that 12-inch radius coming around to get back in and back down the line to the other tracks. So that's what I use, and if you look at, I don't know how well, hopefully you can see, but you can see that I've drawn some of my pencil lines go a little bit further, and then they come in and they go a little bit further, so I can eyeball those points of tangency, because arcs have points of tangency as well. So I don't want an arc to run into another arc, so that, let me see if I can show that. I don't want these two arcs running into each other in a manner like this, where this arc is coming in and it's slamming against the other. I want these arcs to kind of have, again, that point of tangency where the arcs make a smooth transition from one to the other. So that's kind of why I use these, and I use the square to help me keep it straight on with straight sections of track. All right. Now, a couple other things I use if I want radiuses that are other than that. I have this piece of wood here that I've got marked at different intervals here. This one I have marked at 9, 10, at different radiuses, and then I have them marked. Here's my center point of that arc. Is this screw. So this screw is put in here, and I just take a pencil at those sections, and I can actually use that as a big compass to draw those arcs in. Now, obviously, I have my old drafting compass that I can use. Drafting compass over here, and obviously my railroad scale, so it's N scale, so I've got my N scale, so I can get the whatever sizes that I want to do. Now another trick I do is once I lay those out, is I take a blue and red marker. So this is kind of my open frame section of this module, and in order to do that, and in order to know where to run my jigsaw through, I take this little jig that I've made. I got a screw down the center, and I take two Sharpies and I ride them along through here, so I know exactly where I want to cut from here to here, and it's a little bit bigger than my cork. That way, when I make transitions of either a mountain or I pull something in a plateau or whatever off that curve, I can actually put those in place. Combination square comes in handy as well with that, helping me line up my arcs. And then another thing I do is I think some of my modules, you probably noticed that I have done, so back in here I have gone from a lower section and I've raised up. So how do I get my percent grade correct? Again, this is an approximate way to do it, but I basically take a piece of string, and this is about 2.1% grade. So from this knot right here to this black mark, and I've made 8 of them. So every 12 inches is a 1 point. I raise the, so when I put my posts in, I have a quarter inch, I have a half, I have a 3/4, and then in each foot marking I put that, so this one would be the quarter inch, the next one would be, next foot marking would be ½ inch. This way I can follow up on a curve my elevation by using a string on that center line that I've placed on my rising platform. Again, it's approximate 2.1% approximately grade. When you do 12 inches to a quarter inch up, 12 inches long. But that's how I do it. I just take this string, follow it along my line, and then just put my blocks in at each one of those foot markers as I go. So those are the tools I use when I try to make my arcs, and the tools I use when I try to make my elevations. Obviously you can also use the string to create your arcs as well, but by making a piece of plywood with a nice 90-degree here and my arcs here helps me get those points of tangency so that I get smooth transitions from one arc to a straightaway.